Good evening and welcome to Open Minds Special. This evening I have a very special guest. He's been on Inception podcast and it's Michael Feeley. However, I'm going to do my professional part, says she, and do with my auto cue a short bio of this amazing person. Michael Feeley is a former UK police officer and now an ancient code breaker and spiritual life coach who has authored 7 paperback books, with others currently in writing, and several ebooks on various esoteric subjects, and is also a public and international conference speaker and global radio contributor. He is currently adapting his work to cater to a younger audience and will soon have a series of children's books to teach our next generation many truths that they are not taught elsewhere. Michael has appeared on Edge Media TV, The More Show, and has featured on Strawman, The Nature of the Cage, and Elstree Studio's independent documentary. Michael has also appeared on America's largest, oh God, I did it again, I lost it. Here we go. I know it's going to say coast to coast. I love coast to coast. I love it. You've been on there, you've done it. You've got your PhD. With George Noory, and as well as Midnight in the Desert Radio with Tim Weisberg, The Art Bell Show. He has also appeared on The Other Side of Midnight Radio Show with Richard C Hoagland, another great researcher. The researcher who geometrically mapped out the Cydonian city on planet Mars. Michael has recently filmed and also presented a documentary series called Higher Consciousness on Iconic TV, David Icke's channel, and has also appeared in an iconic film called Divine Intervention. I am out of breath, so I'm not reading anymore. Welcome, Michael, to Open Minds. How are you this evening?
I'm very well, and thank you for the introduction. You stopped at the best part.
I did, didn't I? I was running out of breath. At least I got the words out tonight. You know, these bios, some of them are short, and then I think, well, that's too short. But then some of them I can't do it because I'm trying to pronounce it correctly and say big words. No, thank you for coming on the show. We're going to have a wonderful evening on Open Minds. I'm going to kick it off with, okay, Michael, where did this all start for you?
Well, looking back, it all started at childhood, but I didn't realize at the time that that's when it had begun, because I used to have adult conversations with myself that I guess a 7- and 8-year-old shouldn't be having, questioning things, questioning history, watching famous biblical movies and questioning, could this really happen? Can a man part the sea? You know, can an Egyptian army go through the waves? And so I guess it started there. And I always had an inquisitive mind. When it was time to decide what career I wanted for leaving school, it was always a police career, which I did. I did 17 years of a 30-year career. Didn't expect to ever leave, because you don't leave that kind of occupation. You are there to retirement. But in 2009, strange things began to happen to me. Paranormal things began to happen to me. Interactions with otherworldly things began to happen to me. And that sort of taught me a different way, told me a different way, and sort of confirmed what I'd believed anyway. So in 2009, my life took a 360-degree turn, literally. It's almost like the LZ, completely spinning. And as a result of that, I now have a completely different life, a completely different view of life, a completely different perspective and of what is going on out there. So it's sort of a chronological order between being an experiencer to being given information of the sacred and secret kind, to piece the whole of the ancient world together. And then it sort of moves on to visitation, to interaction, to downloaded information, and that's now progressed into quantum mechanics and quantum equations. So it's been should we say it's been an interesting decade and plus.
Do you feel like you've been in university?
Absolutely, the rate in which they sort of, should we say, uplift your frequency in order for you to be able to expand yourself and take in more information is quite evident and quite visible when you know what's going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, to go from not really liking mathematics, you know, my experience of mathematics at school was the teacher would go to the pub at dinner time, come to the classroom drunk and actually fall asleep.
Yeah.
That was my experience of mathematics.
Yeah.
So now to be getting sort of advanced quantum equations in my head,
yeah,
marks a considerable progression.
I mean, there were many like that. I was just stupid at maths when I was a child, and then I ended up, you know, studying, you know, Pythagoras, and then I went into astrophysics and all of the numerology in that, and quantum physics. And I used to say that for me, it was like creative art. I don't know if it's because I was an artist, but I couldn't handle, when I did the GCSE, whatever you call it, maths, I got a high grade. However, it was boring. The maths, that maths seemed to be boring, school maths. Does that make sense to you? It was just so boring. You go, oh, I don't want to do it. But then on the higher maths, no matter what area you go into, it was, to me, it was exciting because I could see numbers and creation. Did you find that as well? That like a passion? Oh, this is, and you know, it was a passion for me. It was. I wrote equations all around a front room wall for a couple of years. I was just on it like a.
Yeah.
Did you find that?
Well, it's certainly become more interesting now than it ever was then. I mean, you know, when you suddenly come up with a mathematical formula for the speed of reality that you didn't know at the time actually corresponds to sonics within the Great Pyramid, you know, and when you start getting advanced technology shown to you in your house, and so it's far more interesting now than it ever was, and to realize that, you know, these things are the reality beyond the reality. When you look at numerology, when you look at geometry, these are realities behind realities that we don't normally see.
Before we go on, I'm not, you know me, I've got to get in there because I've heard something really interesting. Do you know yet, as wise with the math, why you were given this?
My opinion, and it still continues and it's still being documented and journaled, my opinion is it's some kind of advanced space travel.
Wow.
And it's going into angular velocity and algebra. Algebra, again, is something I never really got into. I mean, you know, most people say, you know, that's another day gone without using algebra, but nevertheless, getting X, Y, Z coordinates, algebra coordinates, I think it's part of a series of advanced space travel and angular velocity. And it didn't only stop at maths, but it also came up with a genetic formula to repair genetics, which I also had planted in my head as well.
So there you go.
So it's, I guess, when you become a conduit for these kinds of messages, then when these intergalactic beings, these energies, see the opportunity, then they pass you the information when they get the opportunity.
Amazing.
And that's really what is happening, and it happens at a kind of advanced level, and I can actually feel the exact moment that, you know, the volume or the frequency switch has been set to the next notch.
I mean, you know, I told you prior to recording, I'm going to unpack anything that comes out of you that I think is so interesting. So you've been warned. I'll interrupt you. How does your physical body feel when you're experiencing this? What does it feel? What changes in your reality or in your physical body?
In terms of the physical senses and the physical body, it's a constant eureka moment. And if you imagine when you have a deep passion for something and you have a question in your head about how does that fit to that, and how does that fit to that, and when you get the answer pronged into your head, it's like being a child waking up at Christmas and seeing all the presents.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
And that is how it feels in a physical sense. It's absolutely wonderful. It's humbling, and it's a privilege to know what the majority of people walking in this world do not know.
Yes, I so resonate with that. I'm going to one more thing on that. Now you understand, you're consciously aware when this comes in, and this is for the audience because they would ask these questions: how, when, why, and what. But prior to that, would you then, that feeling that you felt, that, you know, that excitement, I call it bliss joy because I can't think of anything else, but I am aware prior to me recognizing at that instant what's happening, way back I would have this excitement, joy, bliss, but not be aware there was something coming in. Did you have that first as well?
I tended to sense, because I could sense that if you imagine my head was a funnel.
Yeah.
And if you imagine when some X amount of water goes into that funnel, it has to queue before it can go down the nozzle.
Yeah.
Now, for me, this was an energetic replacement of water. So I could be anywhere. I could be swimming. I could be walking around, and I felt almost like a cloud of energy around me that there's information ready to come in. So sometimes I would say to it, "Not yet. I've got no means to write it down," and it would wait. And it would follow me around like an energetic.
Wow.
And when I got back and was able to be in a position to write it, bang, the water went straight down the funnel. So I sort of sensed when it was coming in.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You sort of, if you imagine, you feel and you are aware of a cloud that's following you.
Yeah. No, I totally understand what you're saying. Thank you for explaining that for myself, how you experience it, and also for the audience. Thank you for that. So moving on. So we're going to move on from that part. So what comes next?
Well, what comes next is, what comes next is really should we say, a cycle of information, which what I mean by cycle of information is whenever that cycle comes back around, it comes back around at a much deeper level.
Yes.
So if you imagine, it's just a constant down the rabbit hole spiral of energy, like a magnetic vortex. That's like a ripple in the pool.
I hear you.
And with each circuit, there's more, should we say, depth to the knowledge. There's more depth to the understanding, and that itself is an even greater feeling than the original download, because now it's getting so deep. I mean, when sometimes, certainly in the early days, I was doing these things, I was getting this download, and it was deep, and it felt wonderful. But I also felt in my intuition that there's still deeper levels to this. But now the information that is coming in now with these cycles, I feel that it is reaching the depths that I am satisfied by. And I can actually feel that as a physical feeling, that I have now reached the depths of the mystery schools, the depths of, and some of the things that I say in my talks and whatever probably have not been said outside the sacred halls of silence.
I'm with you.
So with every circuit, it literally comes at a deeper and deeper and deeper level, until now I actually feel satisfied by the information.
Oh, so you're satisfied. That's all that matters. Now, on a serious note, I mean, I know of many people that have similar, but not the similar data coming in. So someone else, it could be something totally different. But the way that you're expressing how it comes in until you get to the point it's time to go. I've heard this many times on different topics, because obviously each individual will bring in something comes in, and that's the whole part of it. Not everyone's going to get the same information you get. It'd be pointless. It would be irrelevant, because there's a lot more to come in. So before we go on, so the information, how many books have you written already?
There's 7 physical books, and there's probably around about the same in ebook format. Okay. But there's a couple in writing, and that obviously I'm taking this really advanced knowledge and I'm putting it into the mind of a child, so the child can understand as a next generation thing. I'm with you. Now we will come back to that, because I really want to do a deep dive on that, because I think that's a great thing. And as I said to you off camera, many stand up and say, I know this, and just share what they know. But what I've identified, and wrong or right, it's just me, is that you've received this information, you have this information. Yes, you do conferences, you write books, and you share it to as many as possible, and come on the shows like this show. But however, you're taking your knowing and you've decided to put it into children's books for the future. I mean, I think that's amazing, because otherwise, I've spoken many times recently on the shows how, I noticed when I was stagnating at a certain thing, we can get into this and still stagnate and not really shift it where it's supposed to go.
And my recent one a couple of months ago was a certain collective of ET, and what, because it was all different. I said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm moving on. So I like that, you're now taking this and saying, okay, it's out to the adults. I'll still give it and share it on podcasts, go to conferences. However, I want to put it in a format that the next generation can understand as well. So we will come back to that, because I think that's a really good thing that you're doing. But I want to jump on now a bit more. I mean, you've got so many different experiences, and for the audience, and we'll go chopping, we'll go back and forward. And you know what I'm doing, because I said to you, I would start breaking it down. I wouldn't be a good interviewer if I didn't, because you have so much information in you, and I'm hoping to get some of it out this evening. Now, out of all the information that's coming for you, which part really interests you? Is it the actual beings that are doing it? Have you met them? Have you seen them? Have you communicated, etc.? Or is it the actual information you've got, and how has that affected you?
It's basically yes to all of them. So yes, I have interacted. Yes, I have had messages. Yes, I have seen them. Yes, I have been invited to certain locations to do work with them. The information that comes in is wonderful. So it comes in. What is the best part? I guess having access to a wider reality, having access to a wider existence.
Oh wow! Yeah.
The information that comes in for me is going to help people to have that experience of the wider reality and the wider existence, because when you look at, we wrongly believe that modern day science is the pinnacle of humanity. It's not. What the advanced science, spiritual science, metaphysical science, and all different kind of sciences that the ancients had really just wipes the floor with what we have today. Now, when you look at their philosophies and what they're telling us in their monuments and monoliths, and obviously sacred scriptures as well, then they are telling us how to achieve our true potential. I mean, the word you, certainly in Egyptian, means the Most High. So you, man, is the Most High spirit, the Most High vibration, the Most High sound. Now, not the animalistic nature that we see in a lot of people on earth. Person who has risen above the animalistic nature to become the human. Now, when you look at what they were telling and what they were teaching us and how to achieve that in order to get that wider reality and that wider existence, that for me is important to share, because enlightenment to me is not only improving yourself with the information, which it does, but also improving the lives of everybody else who you can with that information. That to me is true enlightenment. Now, for me, my favorite part of it all is Egypt, but Egypt that leads into the true and deeper Christianity, because the Giza Plateau is the original Bible, and a lot of the biblical part is written within the oracle stones of Giza. So for me, it is Egypt. I have genetic bloodlines to Egypt. I have a fascination with Egypt. I've experienced Egyptian visitations. I've seen things manifest in front of me from Egypt. I've had visitations from them who've nipped into my timeline and then nipped out again. And so that for me is a fascination. But I also love, should we say, revealing the hidden secrets of especially Christianity, which is my favorite of all the religions to go, which corresponds to Egypt. So when you look at the movie The Da Vinci Code, and I've actually been referred to as the real Da Vinci Code, that is where my passion lies. All the other information from the rest of the ancient world and beyond the ancient world and beyond Earth ties in with that anyway. So it is not separate, but my favorite aspect of it would be Egypt, which leads into, should we say, corrupted Egyptian ethos into Christianity through Hebrew.
I'm with you. Now we're going to stay there because, as you know, obviously I paint Arcanata, and I've experienced timeline slips, and that's one of my topics, favorite passions, is Egypt. But also, as we've spoken before, I'm also seriously interested in this Jesus figure, Moses, and I also tie them together, not like you, but just through my passions. There's something between the two. And my one was the symbology, but it was what I called, I don't know if it's right, the initiation. There was an initiation, and it went secret, and you're the code breaker, and it was a secret and masked over. And I'm presuming, maybe I should never presume, but you broke the code on that. So I have a great fascination with Jesus, Egypt, especially Akhenaten, because he kicked out all the gods and brought in the one, and then they went against him, and blah blah. So please, could you expand on your passion, because it's sort of a bit of my passion too, the connection between Christianity and Egypt?
Okay. Well, I said the original Bible is the Giza Plateau. Okay. So you have the likes of Noah's Ark, which is the Great Pyramid, which is stated in the Dead Sea Scrolls. You have the cornerstone that the builders rejected, which is the third eye. When I've looked at all of religious characters, biblical characters, biblical stories, I've discovered that they are sacred metaphors, and those sacred metaphors is really the potential within. So all of these characters are within us. So let's just take, I'll take just a few of the most famous ones, but let's look at Moses. So when you start translating the Bible back into Hebrew, you start to get a greater understanding. When people tell you to fear God, well, fear in Hebrew is yirah, which means to understand. So it's not saying be scared, it's saying understand.
Understand. Okay.
So God is the four elements, which is creation, and all of the gods of the past that have been worshipped are basically Egyptian magic spells in a fourfold, threefold, or twofold formula. So when we look at Hebrew, I mean, the Egyptian word, Egypt is a Greek name for the land, not an Egyptian name. So when you look at the Egyptian name, it's Kemet. So K is knowledge, and Emet means truth. So Kemet is knowledge and truth. Now, when you look at the Hebrew word Emet, you have E, capital M, E-T. Now that capital M is Mem, which is water. So that is Moses drawn from the water. Now, the M being between Emet means that Moses is the mediator between death and life. Now, death and life, when the soul comes into a physical body on earth, it is classed as a spiritual death. It is a mind of flesh. Now, when you have a spiritual mind, that is life. So you have the lower chakras, which is from the root, and you go up all of these chakras, up the spine, up Jacob's ladder, and you reach the promised land, the land promised. Now, Moses is the bridge, is the mediator between captivity and freedom. So when you look at the burning bush, it is the fornix of the mind, the furnace of the mind, which is the illumination of the mind. And when you look at the parting of the sea, in Gnostic circles, the parting of the sea is just simply the path of least resistance, which is known as the open sea. Now, the path of least resistance is the quickest way from the root, captivity, to the promised land. So Moses is really the mediator, the bridge between death and life. And when you start looking at manna, which is mannite, which is basically the glucose of the brain sugar. Okay, now when we look at the likes of Jesus, Jesus is the lower self that sacrifices itself for the higher self. Okay, so inside the body, as I already said about Jacob's ladder and the chakras and the serpent, the kundalini. Now, the kundalini energy is basically the serpent energy within. Now, that is known as the dragon, known as the serpent, whatever, the serpent of Eden, whichever you want, but it's wisdom. Now, when this activates, Christ was known as a carpenter, because in Aramaic, carpenter is Nanja, which means serpent of wisdom. So when this serpent rises up Jacob's ladder and basically takes and opens the chakras with it. When it reaches Golgotha, which is the place of skulls, which is the head where we get the enlightenment, the light to become enlightened, there's a part of the brain. Now, this is actual scientific fact. You can get this in Gray's dictionary, medical dictionary. And inside the brain, by what is known as the fornix, is a place which is called the vault. Now, a vault is a cave. It is a tomb. Okay? So when we activate this internal Christ, the oil, the anointed one, and which the Bible says rises between the olive and the pyramid, again, two parts of the brain. When this rises, we have the resurrection and Easter within us, because we have the vault, which is in the fornix. Now, there's only one energy that can enter the fornix, and that is the four Amen. Forever and ever, Amen. The word Amen has a numerical value of 33, which is the age that Christ died. We have 33 vertebrae of the spine, Jacob's ladder. So when this oil takes on the solar energy of the solar plexus, it comes up, it advances, and it opens us up. It resurrects us within the tomb, which is the vault, which is the fornix of the brain. Now, this fornix is almost two anterior pillars, which are the pillars of Hercules. Now, in Greek mythology, Hercules guards the pillars. No one can get past the pillars except for Christ. So it is the Christ energy that raises within us, that goes through the pillars into the fornix, into the enlightenment. That is the Christ. So Christ was never an individual person. Christ is every one of us, the potential within. So Christ is within us, and Moses is within us. Noah is Nuach, which relates to the number 7, which is the 7 chakras. Now, when you look at Noah, the arcane knowledge, arc is also an electrical circuit. So the electricity of the body hits the tomb at an arc angle. The archangel that rolls away the stone of the tomb of Christ. So the arcane knowledge, the arc, the electrical circuitry, which is Noah's ark. Now, when you look at Noah being 120 when he built the ark, 120 hides the geometry of the pentagram. So the pentagram, the Star of Bethlehem, which leads wise men to their inner Christ, is the pentagram, which is the symbol of the mysteries and the Pythagorean mysteries. Because when you get the pentagram, you have the 4 elements, which is God. And you also have the ether, which is the 5th element, which is the ascent. So when we control the 4 elements within us, the fire, the air, the water, the earth is the body, earth is thought, the air is thought. You have water, which is the emotions, and you have anger and hate, which is the fire. If any of those are out of sequence, out of balance, then that trait will come out within you. If you balance those, you are the master on earth, the divine on earth, because you have connected to the God within, the Godhead, the divine. Okay, so that is.
Hold on, breathe, because you must have known she's going to jump in, and I didn't jump in, and I want you to continue. I do, but I've just got to ask one thing. I mean, that's like mind blowing. When you finish this. So for the audience's sake, and for me to get a greater understanding, so all of what was written with these names was really like a secret code or symbols. Is this what you were saying? And humans perceived it to be real, but actually it was, and to write about it, they had to put it into a narrative where it would be, this is what you're saying so far. That's fine, long as I'm on the right track with you.
But basically, symbols is a higher language. It is the language of the masters. Now, the advanced student are taught how to interpret the symbols correctly. So if you are not an advanced student, if you are not an initiate who's been chosen to understand, then you will believe the story.
Yeah.
If you are able to interpret what the story really means,
Yes.
you get this kind of depth of meaning.
I'm with you.
So,
yeah.
You know, some people believe that Noah's Ark was real. It's made of wood. It had all the animals and the insects of the world.
Well, now that I don't believe, but
no, I mean that in itself is a children's story, but
yeah,
it didn't happen because it's a metaphor.
Yeah,
and
I'm with you.
That is exactly what happened. Everything was enshrouded in code. Everything was enshrouded in parables, which is what Jesus said. You know, to you know, you get the truth, they get the parables. And
I'm with you. Okay. I'm going to hold you there because I wouldn't be an interview if I didn't. So, is this the knowledge that went into the what is labeled secret societies at first? That you know that they would kill for, you can't go in, and you know, but is this what you're? Did it get hidden away into these secret societies at a point? I need to have some clarification on that.
Yeah. It became hidden because for multiple reasons. One reason is some of the people who possess this knowledge wanted it not to be, should we say, misused.
Yeah.
So they hid it. They hid it from the priesthoods. They hid it from different places so that they wouldn't interpret it correctly either. So they really enshrouded it in sort of multiple Hebrew typology and stuff. So even the priesthoods wouldn't understand what it meant. Yeah. But also, a lot of the people who held onto this knowledge believed passionately that this knowledge was sacred knowledge.
Okay.
And that it is only people who were chosen to be in possession of this knowledge would be in possession of this knowledge by being able to interpret it correctly and its true meanings correctly.
Okay.
And the rest of the masses were not deemed, should we say, some of the derogatory terms, you know, the unsophisticated, the vulgar, you know, these are terms for people who are not initiated into these societies with secrets.
Okay.
Themselves, they have secrets amongst members of the same groups.
I'm with you. So really, could I interject then and say, so if someone that the ones that I call negative Nellies, you know, like us old humans, if they became aware of this knowledge, they would then know what to do to maybe delay or bring in, like, if they were a ruler, a king, or anything like that in a country or land, they could bring in something to make sure, because obviously they know the process of the initiation to the Christ consciousness. They could manipulate that so it didn't happen in the masses, so they could control. Is that correct? Am I getting this correct?
The Church of Rome, which is now the Vatican, now the Council of Nicaea, the Church of Rome, decided what people were going to believe.
Yeah.
And they, should we say, they on the face of it, they became Christian. But what they did is they hid their cults and their beliefs.
Yeah.
And they had Christians worshipping them. Now, when you look at the 25th of December, Christmas Day, that is the birthday of Sol Invictus, which is a Roman cult, not the birth date of Christ.
Yeah.
But Christians all over the world believe that Christ was born on the 25th.
Yes, they do, actually. I'm aware it wasn't. I'm aware of that.
Now, when you look at astronomy in Egypt, it's actually in September, not December. But
yes, I've heard that. The time of year, and I've heard that before. Yes, I have heard that many years. Yeah, I agree. Yes.
So what they did is they were able to mask their belief systems and got people to believe they were worshipping their icons and their deities when they were actually secretly worshipping the deities of Rome.
I'm with you.
So that goes deep into the Vatican as well. Vatican, the divine serpent. All of these different things have been hidden from people. Now the masses literally have stories. Now those stories have been taken as truth, and the priests have told them that it is truth.
Yes.
The priests have said, you know, call them miserable offenders and sinners.
Yeah.
But when you look at what sin means, sin basically means a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
So anybody who has a lack of knowledge is a sinner.
Yeah.
And when you look at the word Gnostic or gnosis, it means knowledge. Yeah. Now, when you look at the word ignorance, it means GNL, which is knowledge. Yeah. So it is the avoidance of knowledge. Now, when you look at what is the devil, what is Satan, it is anything that takes you away from the truth.
Yeah.
That can be politics, that can be history,
Yeah.
that can be religions, that can be anything that takes you away from the truth. And,
Yeah.
and the ancients
Yeah.
believed that the way to avoid the devil, the way to avoid Satan, was to become enlightened,
Yeah.
because then you are not a sinner, because you are in possession of knowledge.
You know, can I come in there as well? So, you know, obviously, you know, when I studied comparative religions and history and things years ago, and I saw a thread go through it of how, well, I recognize that these beings or groups of people were like enlightened. They were enlightened. So, but then at the same time, you know, history's shown the people in power, and it was the Catholic Church at the time, Christendom, would either torture them, mutilate them, kill them as an example to others to stop that knowledge coming out. Because if everyone recognized, we'll stay on the Christ consciousness, the God within, then they wouldn't be able to dehumanize and manipulate them, slavery, and take ownership of them with a birth certificate. So, you know, it's like when you, if you look back at history with the information you're going, I have touched upon it through my life, it just makes sense. It makes sense, because how would you keep that a secret? You know, because someone would chat. So the only way is to be aware of the initiation, be aware of this information, this code, and use it for a negative reason. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, when you look at, again, going back to Constantine,
Yeah,
Constantine and the Council of Nicaea, they edited pretty much everything.
yes, they did.
And the version of the Bible that we have today is basically the edit of the Church of Rome, what they allowed people to know.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at some of the things that they took out, like the Gospel of Thomas,
Yeah,
the Gospel of Thomas goes into the sovereignty of each human being.
yes.
Now, you can't control people if you are teaching them that they are sovereign beings.
No.
What you have to do,
Yeah,
you have to create a false canopy.
yeah,
So you can't get to God except through us.
yes, yes.
You must go into the confession box and say 10 Hail Marys.
Yeah.
You must do, you know, just when you actually look at it logically, and you look at how, when I walk into a church, they are breaching their own commandments. You know,
Yeah.
Thou shalt have no gods before me. Thou shalt not have graven images. Well, there's graven images of Christ everywhere.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So they are actually breaching their own 10 commandments. So people are believing a story that was edited by the Church of Rome, and they are not looking at the deeper meanings. Now, the best place to hide it is where they've hidden it. And the beauty about symbols, the beauty about the energy of symbols, and the beauty about the energy of sacred geometry, is you can only penetrate at the depth that you're ready for.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So when you say, you know, if I was to talk about this to a lot of people, it would just bounce off them, because it's too deep.
I know, I hear you. I'm with you. I'm with you.
So when you are an initiate, and when you touch the likes of hieroglyphs, and it connects information to the soul from the hieroglyphs to the soul, you know, people just look at them but don't realize they need to touch. And if they were to touch them, then the information can only go at a level that they are ready for. And
I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. And obviously, you know, in my art, I paint them. They come in, and I never know what I'm going to do. It just happens. And I have, when I'm painting, and a lot of, when I do paint, not many people know, I use more of my hand to paint, my fingers. I paint with like an extension. But sometimes I need the brush for detail. And it's through that process, somehow, I don't know how it works, I don't need to know, something occurs. However, on that, I will say, when the British Museum, the Egyptian Museum lent the British Museum the Book of the Dead, all of it, the lot, and I went to London with some of my family, and you couldn't touch it. But however, I'm telling you, because of, maybe it was because of the connection, when I went in and I looked, it was like vroom, 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 and it's like, the sense of being somewhere else, just in awe. It's like the information was jumping off, but I didn't know what it was at that time. at that time. Now that would have been, I reckon, about 10 years ago that happened. Someone I know, British Museum, when they had them. Now you come, all these years later, I started, it was only this year I started to just bring through, channel through hieroglyphs, Akhenaten, and everything Egypt. So you can, I resonate exactly with what you're saying about something like the hieroglyph. That symbology, when you look at it, it's just, you don't know why you're attracted, but it's a frequency. Is that correct?
It is, and again, there's lots and lots of information. It's not just a book. You know, there's energy within the letters, there's energy within the words, there's information within those words. And that information, the same with crop circles, same as Nazca lines, same as hieroglyphs, that information at an unseen level is connecting at a soul level, because initiation is a soul level.
Yes, absolutely.
And it is connected, and it's transmitting and transmuting sacred information for those who are ready to receive it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And so would you, I mean, obviously, you know, my truth is that sometimes the information goes in, or you have an experience and you think, oh, I don't know, you don't get it straight away, but then all of a sudden, like, I find how I recognize it now, it's going different now, is all of a sudden I'd have this passion to do something, or this quest to go and research out of the blue, and I go, that's what that was. Does that resonate with you? You know, you're on one path, and all of a sudden you're off with this passion.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's guided. It's really guided, and then you can start off looking for one thing and then completely go somewhere else.
Oh my God, how many times? Yeah.
Some people call it, you know, library angels, whatever. It's basically an inner guidance that is leading you, that is sailing your ship, which is your vessel, which is your body.
Yeah.
And you know, the amount of times the amount of time I've looked for something, and all of a sudden something else has popped up, and but what I've then gone to fits many gaps, so it was needed.
Exactly. Need to go there first before you go to the other, back to the other bit. And it's like what I do now, I try my best to do it. You know, sometimes I behave like a human, you know, and I go left instead of right, but I just allow the synchronicity to come wherever the urge to do something, I do it. And even though my mind's on something else, it could be like a canvas. How many times I've got it at the moment, I've just based a canvas ready. It's been there for a week, which is not abnormal, and it's a blank canvas, and it sits there, and I'm ready, but I'm not ready, and I keep going here, and I keep looking at the blank canvas. But this is how I paint, so I know there's a process, a guidance, that there's still something I need to experience or know before I hit the canvas again. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with what you're saying?
You do. I mean, that blank canvas is the nothingness before the thought, before
yes,
and
exactly.
It gives you the time to have that thought and to work it out, and let the information come in. And it's the same when I write. You know, the first consideration is, okay, what do I know, but what does the reader need to know?
Yeah.
And it's then taking it into a chronological order. I mean, for me, I can't draw, I can't paint. I
can't write like you write. So.
But for me, mine is the written word rather than painting. Yeah. So I can take a word and I can articulate it, and I can get whole meaning of something, which then goes out to the reader. So yes, it absolutely resonates, because again, you know, I have to think of a sentence before I write that sentence.
Yes.
That then becomes another one, which becomes a paragraph, which becomes a chapter, which becomes and so on and so on. So it is creation.
It is creation, and the beauty of it. My I know. I mean, I've tried sometimes. I don't bother much now, but every so often I'll do that color, that shape, and then I feel vroom, and I have to black it out, or I have to change the color, and I realize that. Well, on the completion, I'm creating in a symbol, a vibration that's another conscious being is going to connect with. And I can see that because I see words as vibration, the same. So the written word to me is like thought, like speech. So if I say to you, fuck off, I wouldn't say that. I say it in a fun way, but you know, in a negative way, that has a very low, aggressive vibration. It's going to hit you and you're going to respond. So even when you read books, sometimes you can pick up a book and it's supposed to be amazing, and you start reading it, and not that it's negative, but it's like, put it down. The vibration's not in the words. So the author hasn't got the right intention yet, or for me, it's not right for me, so to speak. Does that make sense to you? So your words are symbols as my artwork is symbols.
They are, and again, you know, when you use words, when you express words, you are using the 5th chakra, which contains Adam's apple.
Yeah.
So if you know, the tongue has no bones, but it can destroy, but it can also bring forth divine knowledge into the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also destroy someone.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of things, really, you know, that there's a saying that if he who listens fully, then he who listens become he who knows.
Yeah.
And he who understands. So you listen and you get the information, and then you put that information out in the best way possible, depending upon the viewer. But every word is a vibration.
Yes.
Every thought is a vibration.
Yeah.
Every thought has a different frequency.
Yeah.
So every thought interacts with the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at it now. I mean, you know, I mean, it's my truth at the moment, and it could change at any time. I now am aware of in symbols is like alchemy. And if you put so many symbols together, I know that because that's what happens with the canvases. But if you say something in a sentence, it's symbol, and it's a frequency, a bit like, you know, like Beethoven and classical music. Dun, dun. It's but it's not, you know, when you got classical music, when Beethoven was writing his classical music, he didn't have the end result. I mean, he didn't rush to the end and write the ending. He was going through the frequency and growing it. If I'm making any sense to you here at all. So I see, like, you know, this is how it works. It's alchemical. The symbology is alchemical. It's magic. It is magic to me. How does that resonate with you? It does,
and the magic circle, the magic triangle, which was evoking a sacred space, is the shape of the monuments and monoliths. But when you look at alchemy and the philosopher's stone, you know, when you look at my name, Michael, really, if you move the letters around, it becomes alchemy. So when you look at the likes of Archangel Michael and Gabriel and Uriel and Raphael, which are the 4 elements, alchemy, you go in a clockwise direction through the square of opposition, and you start with fire. You start with Michael, and so even my name is code for alchemy. So yes, it's important thing, because as I was saying, you know, you have in Kabbalah and Egyptian magic formulas, the word God, you know, stands for the 4 elements. So you have, you know, the water, the fire, and the air. Water, fire, and earth. Creates with air. So there you have the 4 elements in the word God, G-O-D, and creating with air. Now, when you control and master those 4 elements within the pentagram, because the universe, the creation, is based on mathematics. So number 10 also takes you from something to nothing, 1 to 0. But when you look at the universal creation being the number 10, and you see man as being the microcosm of the whole of creation, that means we are the number 5. We are the pentagram. Now, if you wish to become a divine and master your environment, then you do that within the 5. You do that within the sacred symbol of the pentagram, which we're going to be putting on our trees soon. You know, that the Star of Bethlehem is the pentagram. It's a symbol of the mysteries. When you take control and you master those elements, and how do you do that? By the control of emotions. And when you control emotions and master those elements, you have activated a union between the God within, which is divinity. Now, that God within connects to the Godhead that the Egyptians called the Most High. When we are a full and true potential you-man, you, as I said before, being the Most High vibration, not the animalistic nature of man currently, but the human, spiritual human, the one who has a spiritual mind, who is alive, and not a mind of flesh who is dead. And when you overcome that animalistic nature, you become the Most High human, but you also master the 4 elements and you become divine on earth. And that really is what they are telling us time and time again in different ways. But nevertheless, when you're seeing the same numbers, the same shapes, the same message.
Yeah, I mean, my whole experience has been symbology and synchronicity. Sometimes I missed it, but it's always been that way. It's not just numbers, it's everything. See, you know, and I just recognized it. And I always go first time, second time. If I used to go 3 times, and now if I see it twice, I'm on it. You know, and then sometimes I got to see it once, and then I'm on it. So obviously, you know, the connection must be improving. But I do tend to go, something could come up that I would never be interested in, Michael, and it comes up, and I go, and then I come again, and I go, okay, right, let me just check it out, and because that would be the you know, the human, the identity sort of. I'm not interested in that. Do you know how many times I wasn't interested in something, and then all of a sudden I got this bloody passion, you know, and I'm going, I never knew I'd enjoy this so much, you know. So yeah, I recognize the symbology of life, and because I come from my truth is of self-realization, the juxtaposition. It's a real experience I'm having. I'm here having a dream, but it's real. It's a lucid dream, so to speak. I've still got to be the human. I've still got to do what I've got to do. But now it's like a magical mystery, Narnia, or Down the Rabbit Hole Alice. It's fascinating, but it's childlike, because then you start to experience things that the reality that you've never experienced before, and you want to share it. Now I'm going to bring that statement now, because we're coming to the close, to what I said I'd like to talk about. And you know, and this about being the child within that. You are now taking all of this that you shared with us, and there's a lot more, guys. We'll bring him on again, don't worry. And you're going to put it into children's books. What has inspired you to do this, Michael?
What inspired me is, of course, there's a lot of conversations that I have with adults who are ready to hear.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these synchronicities that we talk about, sometimes other people see them, and when they tell me they've seen them, that then becomes a synchronicity, because I understand what they're talking.
Yeah.
I did such a show as this not so long back, and someone got in touch with me and said, I kept seeing the number 17 on your head. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously a spiritual number, it wasn't physically there.
Yeah.
But, you know, and they said, does that mean anything to you? I said, well, yes. You know, the entrance level of the Great Pyramid is on the 17th course level. You know, Nissan 17 is when Osiris, you know, resurrected. When you add 1 to 17, you get 153, which then gives you the Fish of Christ, the Grand Gallery of the Pyramid, Mary Magdalene, which is really the Vesica Pisces.
Yeah.
So just one number brought in the whole of these synchronicities. So what inspired me? Children are exceptionally important, because the children are the next generation of this planet. Now, it's safe to say, without contradiction, you know, it's in a mess. We've made a mess of this. Yeah. Hopefully the children will be bright enough and wise enough and open enough to put the mess right. So the whole ethos of the story, and what inspired me, because I wanted children to have access to an alternative view rather than just the establishment's view of history, which is wrong. But the whole ethos of the story is this young child who hears a knock on the door. So he makes his way down from the bedroom, and he opens the front door, and there on the doormat is a book. There's no one there, and he just picks the book up, goes back to his room, because he's an isolated child in his room, which really is, he's talking about me in a certain way. Yeah. But he puts this book on the shelf and forgets about it. And every now and again, he has the real inkling that he has to read.
Yeah, go on.
That he has to read the book, and he takes the book, and every time he opens the book to a certain page, all of a sudden this portal appears, and he goes to the place that he's reading in the book. So one time it'll be Egypt, the next it'll be Atlantis, the next it will be Stonehenge. The final encounter is on a UFO when all of the characters of the different stories meet him in the one place.
Wow.
But what happens is he goes to these sacred places. Obviously, he doesn't know if it's real or wherever, but he goes to these sacred places. He's met by someone who is expecting him, and he's taken around the sites. He's shown all the good sides of it. You know, where Atlantis, he's riding on dolphins and different things. But at the end of his fun, the end of his childhood fun, his guide will take him to one side and say, I have some information that you need to take back to your time. And he goes into the real meanings of these sacred places.
Wow.
And then when he's got that, he's thrust back in the tunnel, and he finds himself back in the bedroom. And he's obviously thinking, that was obviously a dream. But the twist is, he looks down and he's actually brought a physical artifact back from the location. So it proves to him, real.
Wow.
So that's the kind of ethos. And as I say, he goes to different places where they reveal the sacred knowledge to him that he brings back to his time. And I guess for me, it was a passion for the children to know the truth.
Yes.
Because you know, for too long, they've been given the establishment view of history, the establishment view of their world, the establishment view of science, the establishment view of reality.
And they've lost them. They've lost their magic's been taken away. Their imagination's been taken away. Everything's just been taken away, basically. All the creative arts have been taken away. And what I said at the very beginning of the show, how those who are in power are aware of the initiation and the symbology and the codes, can use it for the opposite reason, to dumb down or to hide. And that's what we've seen happen. So you know what, Michael, it has been absolutely fascinating. And you're going to have to come back, and we're going to just have to go into other areas, because we couldn't get all of you in the show. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Now, do you want to advertise yourself in any way at all, shamelessly? Links, Facebook, whatever, go for it.
The only thing I ever direct people to is my website, because then they have a choice. They have a choice. If they just want to silently read free blogs and disappear, that's up to them. My website is michael-feeley.com. When you go there, everything is signposted, everything is what you need. Just have what you want. Either speak to me or go. It's up to you. But that's the only thing that I will direct people to, because then they have a choice.
Okay, that's lovely. Well, thank you everybody for watching Open Mind Special this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm still going to process. I had to dig more stuff out of him, and I'm going to get him back and dig more stuff out of him. I find it fascinating. It makes sense to me. And especially, you know, I will go away and rethink how I process this, but it was really, really fascinating. And thank you so much for sharing. You're a star, an absolute star. And to everybody else, until next time on Open Minds, bye for now.